Hi, this is Dr. Annette Bosworth, and today we're going to have a short video about some mitochondria. Don't turn it off. It's not that sciencey. The ketogenic diet is something I'm putting together these series of videos for to teach patients about the ketogenic diet and put out some of the myths. And you can get into the weeds about the science really quickly. So this video is to simply review the rules that happen inside every one of your cells and specifically what happens to mitochondria. Mitochondria are your furnaces that burn energy for fuel. If you look at energy and the hottest energy you can burn, it's when you're using glucose. In a ketogenic diet, we switch the body to burning fat for fuel. And there are some simple rules that you have to do in order to get the benefits of this fat burning fuel. Number one, you have to use up all the glucose. Your glucose throughout your body is a very easy to access energy, and it burns really quickly, really hot, and shoots your energy up, and then it crashes back down. Those shifts in the glucose also stimulate your hunger. When you switch to the ketone fuel, the steadiness of the energy is much more stable and the hunger pains go away. But before you can flip those cells over to use that fat for fuel or to use those ketones, number one, you have to use up all the glucose. Not all the glucose, but you need to use up the stored glucose and the extra glucose. The rules of the body are that the mitochondria will burn glucose before ketones every time. Go to your local pharmacy, grab a glucometer and some test strips. You do not need a prescription from me to do that anymore. You can have access to that without a prescription and check your sugars. The best time to check is first thing in the morning, and you should have a blood sugar around 80. In the 70s to 80s is a wonderful number. If your number is creeping above 100 or heaven forbid, above 120, those are signs of prediabetes and diabetes. And you've got to use up those sugars before you can make a ketone. The second thing you need to do is you got to burn up the insulin, or you've got to reduce the insulin. If you're eating 8 times a day, your body is stimulating insulin every time you eat. So the number of meals you have a day definitely correlates to how high your insulin is. The second thing that matters is how high those sugars are. So as your blood sugars come down, so does the insulin level. As you reduce the number of meals you eat a day to maybe 2 or 1, or even do a 36-hour fast where you don't eat any meal for 36 hours, the insulin dramatically drops, and then so does your sugar. This all promotes the use of a ketone fuel for your body. Rule number 3 is you eat fat to burn fat. Most of my patients, when I say you need to eat 1 meal a day or fast for 36 hours, they freak out and say, no way, I can't do that. One thing that doesn't stimulate insulin and doesn't raise your sugars is when you eat fat. And as much as we've demonized fat, the real demon in this picture has been the excessive amount of insulin we find in patients today. And last but not least, how do you know if your cells have flipped over to using ketones? You can measure it. That's the best part about this diet. You don't have to guess. If you're burning ketones for fuel, you will be able to measure it. The cheapest way to do that is a urine ketone stick. It's not a guessing game like I find with a paleo diet or people who use a gluten-free diet. When we switch patients to ketones, it's either yes or no. They're either making ketones or not. The 4 rules that we went through today are that you got to burn the sugar, you got to reduce the insulin, you eat fat to burn fat, and finally, you measure the ketones to know if your mitochondria are burning ketones for fuel. If you'd like some more suggestions on what foods are acceptable, I've made a food guide that I think is very helpful that guide people into the right direction. Thanks for tuning in.